It's week 5, day 30 of my full-time spinal rehabilitation. My name's Jason, and today I'm going to be talking about psychedelic inhibitors. What are those things that keep you from considering using psychedelics if you need them? A quick status update first. I'm a little less energized today than I was yesterday. Yesterday I had my first treatment of Spravato, and holy crap, that was quite the experience. It was incredibly powerful. I have Spravato again tomorrow. I realized that yesterday I didn't tell you about the schedule that I'm on with Spravato. I will be taking it 2 times per week for the first 4 weeks, 1 time per week for the next 4 weeks after that, and then 1 time every other week the next 4 weeks. So it's kind of a downward slope schedule. And the idea is to have this experience enough times that it's self-reinforcing, which is something I was wanting to do with ayahuasca because I went down to Cedar City, Utah around end of November, Thanksgiving weekend, and had 2 nights of ayahuasca. But I realized it was going to take repeat contact with these substances to probably get the full effect, and now I have that with Spravato. As far as tips go today, I have two. The first is to add a workout playlist while you're in the gym. I deliberately didn't do this at first because I knew that if I started playing like Rocky music, I would hurt myself and go too fast. And so I didn't have any playlists going. But now that I'm about a month into it and I'm kind of familiar with the weights and the routines that I'm doing, the chance of me hurting myself is lower. And so I'm willing to entertain the idea of playing Rocky-like music and take that risk. But I was not willing to take it initially. And the next tip is to adapt your workout routines. So you'll remember yesterday I swam 14 laps. Well, what pace was I swimming at? It was a pretty leisurely pace, so probably more like a distance swimmer would do, very moderate. And today I realized, well, it's been about a month. Let's try a sprint pace, which means as fast as you possibly can. So I did some sprint laps today, and I think those definitely kicked my butt. And I only got one sprint lap at a time. I had to stop. I could not go consecutive. When it was all out, it was one lap and done. So I found another way to stress my body, and I'll kind of assess tomorrow how the sprint lap affected me. And if it was fine, I'll do that again. So I'm going to try 2 different approaches to swimming. One is more of a distance focus, more of a leisurely pace, and do it for longer. And then a sprint focus, which is more intense, do it for less time. So adapt your workout routine so that your body doesn't get used to what you're doing. That's the basic principle. All right, to the topic of the day, which is psychedelic inhibitors. So there are several things that keep people from using psychedelics when they need them. And I'd like to go down the list that I've come up with so far. There may be other inhibitors, and I'd like to hear what those are from you, if something's keeping you from psychedelics. The first one is the legal inhibitor. I think this is probably the least potent one now because legality is kind of a moot point. As of 2006, ayahuasca was made legal by a U.S. Supreme Court decision. I can't even pronounce who was versus who, but anyway, it's Portuguese, I think. Anyway, the United States government was persecuting this poor religious group for using ayahuasca in its ceremonies, and under the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act, the government wasn't able to make a strong enough case to impinge on their religious liberties. And so we now have the ability to participate in religious rituals if we'd like to and consume ayahuasca, which is what I did down in Cedar City. So that's really not a problem. Ketamine was FDA approved on March of 2019. And so that is now clinically available in several locations in Utah, at least. So I would assume in every major metropolitan area, there are at least a clinic or two that serve up ketamine. So you can get it that way legally, no problem. And then some of the remaining psychedelics with therapeutic properties like psilocybin, MDMA, are in the works going through the FDA right now and are under review. And so in the next year or two, those should probably be legalized and available in a clinical context as well. So legality is really kind of a moot point now, as far as I'm concerned. The next inhibitor is a religious one, and I can think of several ways in which this might cause a problem. Various religions have different health codes, and I can't speak to all of those. But some people might find that psychedelics violate the health code of their religion. The other thing I can think of is that some people might consider it a God replacement, meaning now that I've had this psychedelic experience, I now understand exactly what Moses saw on top of Mount Sinai. He was really on magic mushrooms, right? It's a God replacement theory. I'm not really keen on that theory for a couple of reasons. One, it just strikes me as a now I have a hammer, everything is a nail mode of thinking. And so we've seen something that's kind of out of this world, therefore everything that's out of this world must be that, right? It's not true. I don't think Moses was smoking, well, not smoking, he would be consuming magic mushrooms. Can you smoke magic mushrooms? Actually, I don't know. Anyway, so I don't think Moses was high on top of Sinai. It's not really a problem for me. And I'll just say this. I actually walked away from my ketamine slash Spravato experience more religious than when I went in the room, meaning the ability to have such an amazing, eye-opening, awe-inspiring, visionary experience to me spoke of a reality and a world that is much more marvelous than I had ever considered before. And the more marvelous the world and the more marvelous the possibilities of existence, to me, that argues more strongly for God. So I'm not really one of those people that believes mushrooms explain everything. I'm not going to go there. As far as health codes go, I can't speak to all health codes, but I will talk a little bit about the LDS health code, or the health code of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's called the Word of Wisdom, and it's contained in a book of scripture called the Doctrine and Covenants in a section labeled 89. And basically it breaks down everything into a series of categories and talks about what those category of things are supposed to be used for and how they're supposed to be used. And of course, there is no psychedelic category. And so the person reading the Word of Wisdom has to go, well, where does this best fit? And my take is it best fits in the category of fruits and herbs. And that when applied with prudence and judgment and skill, which is really the requirements set up in the Word of Wisdom for proper use of substances, they can be health promoting and should be used as such. So that's my basic take there. Again, for any given religion, what you need to consider is going to vary, but I would find it odd if this really ran afoul of very many religious health codes. That's my take. The next inhibitor is one that we're all subject to, which is a cultural inhibitor. And psychedelics got a bad name because of recreational use and abuse and not being in a safe setting when you consume them, and people getting hurt, right? Physically hurt because they were in an unsafe environment. You know, driving with psychedelics, or being on the road, walking around on roads when you're on psychedelics, walking off balconies when you're on psychedelics, not a good thing, not a smart thing to do. And so that stigma has carried over. But if you differentiate strictly on the basis of recreational versus therapeutic use, I think most people can see the difference here, that there's a world of difference between taking these substances to have out of this world experiences, which can be beneficial in and of themselves. But when you're taking them to heal your mind and overcome real issues, real problems, most people can get past the stigma of recreational abuse. So I don't think that's really that big of a deal. The next inhibitor would be the cost inhibitor. So I don't have the exact figure, but I remember it was just shy of $200 per dose if you paid out of pocket for Spravato, which is ketamine. If the course of treatments is about 14, the standard course of treatments is 14. It's that schedule I described earlier. And if you tally that all up, running up to about $200 per dose, you're looking at $2,800, which, let's be real, it's the price of a very nice 4K television at Costco. So if you value your mind more than you value your television set, this really shouldn't be a problem, assuming you even have to pay out of pocket. So insurances do cover Spravato, but and there are actually, I think there's another variant out there as well, but this is the one that I'm taking. They do cover ketamine treatments of various sorts in a clinical setting, and so you might just have to pay your copay to see a psychologist, plus a small fee on top of that to pay for the drug itself. And in my case, and this is probably typical of I think most plans that people might get on, is there is a coupon policy or a company that has coupons for Spravato that's paying the bulk of the fee of the drug, or the cost of the drug. So I'm paying $10 per dose, which is really, really low. And the rest of it's being essentially footed by, I think, the pharma company that's providing the coupon. So there are ways to deal with the cost, and that really shouldn't be that big of an inhibitor. Worst case scenario, you need to go without a 4K television. It's not the end of the world. All right. So fighting for your life means you have to overcome inhibitions. Some of them are rational, some of them are irrational. But you need to do your research and you need to figure out what is it that's keeping you from getting the help that you need and overcome those inhibitions. As long as it's legal and as long as you're not doing anything, running afoul of a really stringent religious code or something like that. Chances are you're not doing anything illegal. You're not going to run afoul of your religion. You just need to look at whatever it is that's keeping you from getting the help you need and find a way to make it work. That's basically the takeaway. So I'm curious in finding out, what inhibits you from using psychedelics if you need them, or someone in your family or extended friends, a group of extended friends, why aren't they using psychedelics? What keeps them from doing it? Please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe.